Hello and welcome back to another episode of a Wicked Parley, and it's live!
We're finally done with the pre-record.
We are. Oh my goodness. So happy about the pre-record thing. And I have...
Yeah. We have survived.
We have survived.
You did it.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. I appreciate it. We made it. We've made it to a live broadcast. I am still alive, in fact. She didn't, Rose did not kill me. That is...
I did not unalive him. I did not.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. Well, good to know. So, before we sound so murdery, I'm going to let you guys know that tomorrow, not tomorrow. Oh my God. See, look, you already screwed me up. Next week will be another live episode. And then unfortunately, we were going to be going off. We'll be returning in like 2.5 months, I think. 3 months, something like that. I don't know. Something like that. And when we return, we'll be returning with a brand new studio and a entirely new format for the show. No, host, we did not abandon you. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, buddy. We didn't do that. But I just wanted to bring you guys into the loop. For those of you guys who support the show on Patreon, there will still be content on Patreon. And for those of you guys who follow the show on Twitch, Twitch will sort of be there, give or take. I know we've been absent there quite a bit, but we will be returning there in the same time period that we return with a new format. But I just think that it's important for you guys all to know, hey, this is going on. There's been a lot of big changes in life, and with those big changes requires some adjustments, and I just want to thank everybody who has supported the show in the past, and those of you guys who continue to support the show. It means everything, and
yes, it does.
I really appreciate it. We all really appreciate it.
Much appreciated. We're trying to make the show better.
Yes, I want to make it more engaging, more entertaining. I want to bring in more voices, so look forward to hearing more sides of issues and being able to...
with chaos.
Yeah, with more chaos. Chaos is always nice. But I also want
more people in the kitchen.
Exactly. But I also want to bring in more in-depth discussions about specific things, retouch on older episode topics, but also expand on new ones. Because I think that, every day is an opportunity for something new to happen and something interesting to talk about. So let's look forward to those future conversations, and bear with us for that, for our temporary hiatus.
Forgive us.
But we will, I promise this, that we will return. I will make sure of it. Okay, so with that all out of the way, tonight's episode is discussing something that, is obvious to some, a mystery to others, and that is why family matters. Not everybody has great family lives. Some people have great lives. Some people have, wonderful parents and great siblings, if they have those. And some people have that and some people don't. And the point of this entire episode that I want is that this is going to be a branch off point. This is going to be this is a topic that we probably are going to circle back to a few times in the future. So tonight's just going to be like the first stab at this particular topic. But I heard
stab.
Indeed. Shink, 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 shink. But I want to focus on first, what exactly is a family? How do we define what a family is? Why is it an important concept? I want to go through some of the things that I think helps bring people together. I want to talk about how families can be connected, how families are helpful to people and to raising children. I want to talk about the things that are involved in being a family, traditions that are shared, and perhaps discuss legacy and some form of immortality. So,
lots of stuff to handle.
Exactly, yes. Okay, so the first thing I just want to dive right into is going to be, what exactly are we talking about when we say family? Now, traditionally, family is comprised of a mother, a father, a child, and potentially more children, and depending on situation, perhaps grandparents, uncles, nephews, nieces, cousins. And they're all a unit that are essentially bonded, there to be supportive and helping each other strive to live their best lives. That to me is what I think of family. If you guys don't think of that as family, which I think there is a good case to be made, then you guys can always share your opinion of that in the chat, and I'd be happy to discuss it with you. I think that there's another type of family that exists. It's not the family you're born into, but the family you choose. And these people who are family are usually very close friends. It's the person that will go the extra mile for you, that will save you from, major issues, will prevent you from taking a bad path. These people are influential. They affect and shape who you are, which is why I consider that to also be in the family definition.
Found family.
Yeah, exactly. Family, in another angle of this, I think has to do with, it is the first introduction to life in general, right? The first things you get exposed to are going to be introduced to you by your family. So your belief systems, what you think is good and bad, your culture, largely. All of these things are going to dramatically affect the way in which you're going to approach living your life, at least in the beginning. So, yeah, you don't have a say who you're born into, what your unit looks like, but it does impact many of the things in which affect your ultimate outcomes. So, Rose, I know that you live an interesting life. And I know that you were raised by two very supportive parents. Did you ever come across any situations or circumstances that you feel comfortable talking about on air that say something about your family when it comes to how they function?
Yeah. Let me think. Because it's like my family is pretty much, we do our best to support each other and keep each other out of trouble and whatnot. My particular family unit is more on the quiet side of things. We're kind of content just like knowing where each other is and knowing that each other is safe and whatnot. We essentially, whenever somebody gets in trouble, we do what we can to help them, especially for immediate family. Extended family is another question entirely. It just depends on circumstances and how well, essentially, how well they've treated us versus it determines kind of how we treat them back type of scenario in at least an immediate family. So it's pretty much whenever I personally required assistance, whether this was financial or travel or something I wanted to do, pretty much I felt pretty comfortable just asking my parents, hey, can you help me with this? Or can you help me make sure that this happens? Or when I wanted a driving license, it's like, hey, I want a driving license versus, a regular ID, because it's it costs the same, just one lets me drive. Can I borrow your car? It's just like, what? It's like, you're not borrowing his car. My mom is just like, no, you're driving my car because it was the bigger car.
Oh, that's funny.
Like, he can teach you how to drive it because I don't trust myself to teach you how to drive it, and I'm busy. But he can but my husband, essentially my dad, her husband, is like, he can teach you how to drive because he's better than me, but you're going to take my car.
Okay, so...
And it's just a lot of support, a lot of praise. Trying to, it's just no matter how frustrated with myself I got, it's just I was doing my best, and they had to keep reminding me that I was trying. I wasn't just, floundering like a fish out of water.
Yeah. So it sounds like your family was very supportive of your ambitions, of your goals, and wanted you to succeed and wanted you to feel comfortable succeeding. And I think that speaks to, the large examples of what I think most families are. whether they be what you're born into or whom you choose. And I appreciate your example because I think it's really important, and it kind of helps me highlight a couple things that I think are really important in understanding what happens when families go off their rails. A lot of times families kind of, like you hear how families sometimes are just like, okay, they're what Anne described, a lovely supportive unit, and then other times they're like each other's throats. Like,
oh, I know a couple of people like that.
Yeah. And there's an article that I kind of pulled out which talks about basically a family that is having a troubled teenager, and they're discussing different approaches for family and how counseling kind of affects the family unit. And I want to go ahead and share that with you guys, and I want to kind of explain my read of what this excerpt from this article says. And of course, if you guys are interested in reading the full article, we'll have it in the description, and we post it where we can. But effectively, the part of it in which we're referring to specifically is in Evidence-Based Psychotherapies for Children and Adolescents, a book published by Guilford Publication, argued for a short round of therapy in which the entire family receives counseling once a week for 8 to 12 weeks. This targets the entire family using the premise that the behavior of any one member, in this case, the adolescent, can only be understood by examining the context of the family system in which it occurs. Now, this seems kind of like strange, perhaps, because we just talked about something super awesome from Rose, but on the other side of things, this is, of course, like, the bad side of sorts. But, like, I think the key thing is this, right? Mm-hmm. When you're discussing something that's considered bad with family members in general, it is incredibly important to get the entire unit together and for them to be able to receive counseling and being in that room for 8 to 12 weeks. So that way it gives people the opportunity to really show who they are, what's important to them in the family. Is it the family unit, or are they in it for themselves? And I think that when particularly children, speak out, they're usually, they're echoing some sort of emotion that's shared within the family. And I want to really talk about that because I think when it comes to family units in general, what happens with the younger group is a reflection of the parents. And I think that families in general, or the people who are of the leadership roles in the family, are going to directly influence all of their peers who are younger than them. Because the people who look up to certain people or have some sort of respect for them are going to imitate and mimic what they see. And this is important for the next major talking point that I want to kind of discuss, which has to do with traditions. Dun, 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 dun. When I talk about traditions with the team earlier this week, I kind of went in down an odd path about different about various things that I think are probably something we'll circle back to. But I think the main traditions that I think are shared within family units actually are usually demonstrated by certain roles or frames. This is commonly referred to as the masculine or feminine frame or framework or role. And this just really encapsulates certain behavior traits and things that can serve as either a template or a roadmap for young people, or as lessons in life of this is how some people can act in the real world. And you're in a family unit, so you're safe from consequence, but you do get exposure. And I think that that's something important because traditions are interlaid, obviously, with all sorts of things. They're going to talk about good and bad in some ways. You're going to get used to maybe certain holidays and celebrations. If you're of a real particular religious background, you might have a special worship. You might practice certain rituals. Halloween obviously is a ritual that's often in North America shared, and they do all sorts of weird things. Carve pumpkins, go on trick-or-treating, do all sorts of kind of odd things, right? And that's culturally driven. So it's families around the world are going to have different instances of this. But um, I think it's a key element to understand that tradition imparts knowledge. Knowledge imparts action, and kind of around and around it kind of goes as more and more information kind of gets pulled out. I see the host has a strange thing. Is it worth talking about?
I think like the team put into, chat like the question of what do you think of when you think of the word family?
Mm-hmm.
And they're referencing this one scene in an anime
Mm-hmm.
where essentially the family kind of just beats up on this one film.
Oh, jeez. So it sounds
That's the gist of that.
So basically the family uses one person as a punching bag. Yeah, hey, yeah, that happens.
I don't even know if it was a family member who was the punching bag or some random poor soul who got messed up in the entire thing.
Oh dear Lord. Okay,
it is an anime though, so
yeah, all right, fair enough. Cartoons, make believe. Thanks, host, for the attempt to derail. Partially successful. So anyways, back to the talking point of tradition.
yes.
The proverbial rabbit hole that we're probably going to circle back to at some point has to do with the idea of the feminine and masculine roles. I'm going to mention this now because I intend to talk about it in the future. And so like that way you guys who watch this in the future, or you guys are watching it now, maybe take note of this particular thing. But I think masculine and feminine roles are incredibly important, and they don't necessarily need to happen from people who are necessarily a male to have a masculine role. I think anybody can have these roles, but I do think they're important for child development. And without going too much into this, I think that the concept goes back a considerably long period of time, probably at least as far back as the 1800s, perhaps even further. And we'll come back to this, but I just want to have that little note stated that I believe this, and that the entire basis of my talking points tonight and probably in the future are going to have to some extent this particular ideology. And so if you disagree, feel free to talk about it in the chat. Feel free to message the show and we'll respond to your concept, your idea, if you refute this particular position. Yeah. Okay. So in addition to obviously being an introduction to culture and an introduction to society as a whole, the traditions are also another way of imparting knowledge to a younger generation of people. Some people are taught how to tend to a fire. Maybe they are a Boy Scout and they learn a whole bunch of survival tricks. That can be a tradition if the family traditionally does this over a time period. Or heck, you could even start the tradition. There's no sense of, oh, hey, by the way, I want to start a new tradition. Oh, that's not a tradition because you're starting. It's like, actually, that's how traditions get started. Someone starts doing it and then they just repeat it over time. So.
Yes, this tradition just appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah,
it just appeared from thin air. Nobody started it ever before. It's just part of the family. It's just like, who started it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, to me, I always assume that wheels just appeared out of the sky when I snapped my fingers. It's like, all right.
Yes. So, the annual chess tournament between
yeah, because
started,
they just materialized out of nowhere.
Yeah, there's no reason for the dozens of chessboards along. No, these just came out of nowhere. Yeah, they were always there. They were there before we even moved into the house.
Oh my god. Well, hi Kyle. Welcome to the show. So when it comes down to the key points of tradition, in my particular opinion, I think it is a way of creating harmony within the family unit, to impart knowledge and to connect and create bonds that can withstand immense trauma. That is my particular belief. I think that the purpose of the family is essentially a structure to protect people and insulate them from the harms of the world. I think tradition and legacy insulate the family in different ways against things that would be both interior and exterior threats. I think that one of the most important elements of tradition is the creation of what I would be considered to be the transition point of this entire talking point, which is legacy. And that is the fact that families are always striving to fight for some form of immortality. You know, I think a lot of people I think a lot of people probably think they're immortal. I think at least for the first 20, 30 years of their life, they're like, nothing in my life, I'm going to live forever. Everyone else is, you know, like, oh, if they die, that's unfortunate, it's sad, but that's not me. I'm going to live forever.
Yeah, you're about as immortal as this cube.
And then I think, like, one day, you get hurt real bad, you know? like something bad happens, you know? Not like I wish ill upon anyone, but, like, I feel like at least one bad thing, significant bad thing, happens to somebody at some point. They wake up and go, oh my, oh, wait a minute. This show ends. Like, this rail train goes off. And I think that, like, that's the point where they start going, oh, wait a minute. That's why why family is important. It's kind of my, this is a bit of an idea, you know, a suspicion of mine. But I think that that's the reason why around, you know, late 20s, early 30s, you know, a bunch of people start freaking out. And they end up getting married and have kids at this time period. This is a suspicion of mine. I'm not saying it's true, but all what I will say is that I think that around that time frame, roughly, the sense of this whole show is coming to an end hits people, and they want to know that their life meant something. And I think that not every single person is going to get a monument made of them. Not every single person is going to do something great. But what most people can do is they can have children. And that gives people a sense of, oh, hey, a part of me is going to live on when I'm gone. And because of this, I think it is a reason that people strive to have families. I also think that family itself is a way of being able to kind of bundle all the things that matter in life into one unit that's easily identifiable and allows for a very easy conference of like comfort, of education, of all the things that you could possibly entwine when it comes to the ideas and thoughts around family. And I think legacy, tradition, these two concepts together allow for those particular points to be connected and drive home. And I don't know about you particularly, but my beliefs on children are not exactly the viewpoint that I'm sharing. You know, like I'm gonna be very honest about this.
Okay.
My family is horrible for the most part. Like, and I don't mean that like the individual people are bad. What I mean is that like the dynamic of my family is almost non-existent when it comes to a normal family structure. There's a lot of people I know who basically have similar stories to tell, and I think it's because the concept that we call the nuclear family has been under attack for decades. And I don't think that people really understood that it was even a thing to be attacked or it would have a consequence necessarily. But I think it did. And obviously we've talked about the nuclear family before. You know, yes. I know those of you guys who are watching right now, you guys know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. And I think that like and I'm not like we can talk about, if anyone really does have a question about it, you can email the show and I'll give you a detailed example of what exactly it means. But the main thing is that I think that without the concept of the nuclear family, we are 100% lost. And we are lost because we're going to lose the ability to pass on knowledge. So we lose tradition. And if we lose a piece of that, then I think that we will eventually crumble because we have no way of bonding people together. We're just going to create a society of people who distance themselves. I think that's why family matters. I think at the end of the day, Family matters because it is this one thing that we can definitively look to, that no matter all of our arguments, our disagreements, our likes, our dislikes, we know that those things are going to bring us together. Okay, so I see Kyle has sent a message.
Yes.
Should we read it? What's going on?
I'm kind of curious as to, the extra details. So, Kyle states that all happy families are the same, but all unhappy families are unhappy in their own special way.
Okay.
So it's like it is, for me at least, it's an interesting statement, and I'm curious as to, like, I can see parts of it, but, like, I'm pretty sure, since I'm not the one that said it, I don't know all the particular details, so I'm kind of curious,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Kyle, I'd like to know what you mean by all happy families are the same. Because I agree with your last part of that statement. I just don't agree with the first part, as I think that most families, if not all families, are unique. Maybe the things that bring people together that are considered happy families might be similar in certain cultures. But I don't think that what makes a happy family in the United States is the same thing that makes a happy family in India or in Portugal or in China. I think that there are commonalities that are probably that they have, but I also think there are also independent things as well. Because I think that, like, respect is a huge deal in Asia.
Yeah,
and like elderly, like, respect specifically, like in a hierarchical kind of way, we don't have that in the West, like, at all. I think that most people look at their mom and their dad and their grandparents on, more or less equal terms. Maybe their parents a little bit higher up than the grandparents. In Asia, it would be 100% the grandparents are the higher, and the parents are beneath. So that's the reason why I would like to know a little more about that, about your take on it. As for Kyle's other message about the nuclear family, yeah. That is exactly correct for the most part, I think. With the splitting in half being hilarious to me.
Yeah, it's like, 2.5 kids. Concern?
Yeah, 2.5 kids totally makes sense.
Yes, makes sense if you realize that's an average.
Yeah, an average. Because you want a kid who's born, and it's like, you know what? I'll take just a half. You know what I want? Just one half. Just,
God Almighty.
At the knees. You know what I'm saying? Just at the knees. Knees to head. We're good. Everything else, you leave it behind.
God Almighty, no.
Cheer them up.
No. We're not peeling kids. We can peel sheep, but we can't peel kids.
Oh, but why? You don't want to shear children? Come on.
No.
It'd be fun.
Hey,
I'm pretty sure that if we went to, like, certain parts of the world, that people would be paying a lot of high money for that.
God Almighty, no, we are not in that part of the world.
Okay, all right, fine. We're not that part of the world yet.
Yeah.
So what? Society's on its way down. All right, Rose. It's on its way down. The bottom is in sight. All right.
Look. I already know I'm going to hell, but I have standards still.
All right, fair enough. Fine. Yeah, poor Timmy was born with an upper body. He loved playing football with his siblings, though. What? Without his upper body. Without it, huh? Okay. I mean, like, what is he like? No, you know what? We're not going to go there.
Stop.
Right,
I'm going to get here.
Congratulations, host. You have successfully derailed me. I appreciate you.
God damn it, host. He has saved all the derailing shenanigans for now.
Yeah, Kyle. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, families, in my particular opinion, I gave my definition of what I thought a family was. I also said that family is kind of like the people you choose to have in your life, and those can definitely take the form of a communal sort of situation. There's a person that I'm aware of that has 3 or 4 elderly people whom more or less they view as as a certain parental role, and in that way you can definitely say that communities definitely raise people, and I definitely think that certain cultures certainly operate that way. You can talk. There's a huge. I'm not going to go list through the hundreds of thousands of cultures that exist that each raise their young in different ways. But what I will say is that most certainly there are lots of examples of communities that raise children, and those exist even in the United States. So yeah, I would be curious to know what you particularly think is the most important element of family. Why does family matter to you, Rose?
Why does family matter to me?
Yeah.
It's they are kind of, my safety backbone. I know that I can try as hard as I'd like, and if something happens or something in my life fails, I have family members to fall back on. Like, I have that safety net, and I also understand that that's something that actually not a lot of people have. So I'm always grateful that my parents are always willing to help me. I'm grateful for all the relatives that like treat me nicely and are like supportive of what I do, and especially grateful for my found family, who are very cutthroat toward anybody who dares threaten my future security, apparently. I have people threatening other people, and I'm just like, oh goodness. It's like, none of them have needed to act on it, so that's a good thing and a bad thing, because good thing is, it's like, I know they are fully willing to like defend me and help support me and like, protect me and all that, but at the same time, oh god, I don't want to know what they do if somebody actually gets me hurt. That's gonna be a bloodbath, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
What?
I have nothing. We're recorded. There's nothing legally binding me to this.
We're going to give
thing.
plausible deniability to everybody here.
Exactly. That's right.
But like, I also realize that more people need a supportive backbone like that, and usually, in my opinion, family is supposed to be that kind of first line and like last line of defense, but not everybody does. And it's like, you see these people, doing these either bad things or like not really, or at least what like a majority of people wouldn't say good things about it. And then you think about it, it's just like, you can just look at the person that's like, oh yeah, they're a bad person, but then like you think on deeper, it's like, why though? Like, how were they raised?
Yeah. I mean, that kind of ties into one of the things that I was kind of like thinking about when it came to just families in general, and that is like how culture directly affects viewpoints. And then like in the United States, the easiest thing that like you can point to is like political radicalization. Like no, seriously, think about it. Like nothing can bring or divide a family so fast as politics. And any person, like, I heard a story that made me, I laughed, I shouldn't have laughed. I'll be 1,000%, and I'm sorry if the person who is listening, like, knows this is who this is. but there was a story of, like, how, like, the family basically got divided during the Trump-Biden election.
No.
Oh, yes. Like, literally, one of the persons was, like, for Trump and, like, was diehard and, like, had a truck and, like, a flag and was one of those assholes who drives around with, like, the big flag and stuff. And,
son of a disco.
Their like, entire family was, like, 100% all for Biden. Like, 100%. Now, I'm not going to show my political, like, beliefs exactly on here, but what I will say is that their family was in a nonstop fighting fest the entire time, and then after the election results, the friend was very much alienated from, like, his entire family.
God.
And I think that, like, that's a shame. I mean, I laugh, but, like, I also think it's a shame. And I think it's a shame because I think that we shouldn't be so easily divided, and we shouldn't be so easily unable to see another person's side. And I think that, like, families are on the attack. I think the family unit itself has been attacked in so many different ways for so long that I think the idea of family, it struggles sometimes, especially like the families you're born into, to really have an identity. And with the nuclear family concept kind of being gone, it is, or at least not common, we need to figure out a new framework. A framework that works. Because I think the single mom raising, 1.5 children.
Stop it with that.
Fine. 1.8. But no, seriously though, the fact that there's the single mother situation, regardless. I think that we need to figure out ways for couples to get together and stick together and raise kids to maturity. I don't think that should be legislated. I think that 100% we can talk about the issues and find ways of building common ground and finding ways of resolving issues so that way that number can go down. I don't think you need harsh policies, and I don't think that shaming people, or telling people, oh, you're a bad person because you couldn't make it work, It's like, I don't think those things work. But what I do think works is figuring out, okay, hey, what kind of things do you need? How can we go about getting those needs met? And how exactly... Damn you, host. And how exactly can those particular needs be shared with the community without being the community's problem? If that makes any sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I kind of think needs to happen, and I think it circles back to this is why family matters. So hey, if anyone has any questions, this is the time. If you don't have any questions, we'll wait a little bit and then we'll go. Yeah. Okay, so Kyle looks like he posted a couple things. What do you say?
Yeah. So Kyle adds, it would be great if we could replace the idea of a nuclear family with something like a communal family, neighbors, extended family, religious groups, etc. Maybe subsidized child care if that helps. And then for me personally, I've added it in, which apparently hosts agree with. I remember this quote. I don't remember where. I don't remember who. Mm-hmm. It comes up a lot in some of the stuff I've read. But the quote, "It takes a village to raise a child."
Yeah. Yeah, that gets echoed quite a bit.
Yeah, so don't ask me about the original,
about
the origin of that, because I'm not going to know.
That's okay. When it comes...
It just reminds me of that.
Yeah. I think the idea of the nuclear family, I think the concept of it is, I think, good. I do think communal family is definitely a great second option. I do think subsidized childcare definitely makes sense. The more I think about problems in society, the more I realize that most of the time, the reason why problems exist, homelessness, childcare issues, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. It comes down to the sense of funding, all right? And I don't mean, is there enough money to solve the problem? I mean, it becomes an industry. People are employed to solve a problem. And when you do that, you incentivize people not to solve the problem, but to treat the issue's problem of the day. You're not actually fixing the problem, you're just putting a Band-Aid on it. And you're just reapplying that Band-Aid frequently. That I think is the primary issue at hand when it comes to that sort of stuff, and why I think if you were to completely remove the concept of the nuclear family and you were to make it entirely communally focused, I think that kind of comes as an issue. Also, mm-hmm. In some circles, religion is a huge factor that it brings and pulls people together. It keeps marriages together. It kind of controls, to some extent, what people's values and viewpoints are around having children out of wedlock and things along those lines, right? Mm. But at the same time, that only applies to a specific sect of society. Not everyone's going to fit in that box. And I think that the first thing that we need to do is we need to basically accept the fact that everybody is going to be a little bit different. Everybody's going to have unique needs. And those needs need to be met in a way that allows for them to have a sense of dignity and support, but also at the same time not being a detriment to the livelihood and success of the next generation. So that's the thing that I think is kind of like a little bit weird. And I say it from that perspective because I think about like how a lot of us are working. A lot of us, I'd say most people are working. Most of us are paying into Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about what Social Security means, it's kind of like a way for people who are older to get money to live their lives. And I think that like that's a good thing. But I also think that there is a lot of people who are taking money out of the system that the system was never prepared to do.
Mm.
And because of this, I think that it creates a situation where we don't have the means to be able to cover what it is. And so at some point, one generation or another, it could be ours, maybe it's the generation after us, maybe it's 3 or 4, who knows when, but at some point someone's getting screwed. Okay? Someone's not going to get that, is going to pay for that benefit, and it's not going to be there for them when they need it. And I think that as much as people don't like that particular thing, they don't look at it that way. The Social Security system has basically been a government-sanctioned pension for everyone, and that they expect to live off of Social Security when they get to that age. And I think that that's not the right way to teach people how to be. Especially if we're in a capitalistic society, that's not the right way. I think families should take on more responsibility when it comes to this. I think that the family unit should be, involved in more. I think perhaps a way of doing that is maybe taxes for the family directly go into some sort of, bond or stock or something like that goes to funding their elderly families, system, or maybe even daycare, for younger. I mean, it could go either way, right?
Okay.
But I think creating a system and a structure that supports units of people that are basically built into the family, so the more people you have in your family, the more people who are paying into it, who are able to help out. But, it creates the obvious problem of, well, there's more people paying in. At some point, someone's getting screwed because maybe there's not enough coming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, there are problems with both. But I see there's a whole bunch of stuff here. So, not spend too much time on one thing. Is there another question that we need to respond to specifically? Because I see a few.
Yeah. Let's see. Kyle adds for the subsidized childcare. They believe that subsidized childcare could include something such as paying a parent or grandparent to stay home and take care of people, or subsidizing rotating neighborhood parent groups. The latter would be kind of like where one parent watches the neighborhood's kids for a day and they rotate out who does that among the parents.
Oh, that would be an interesting way of doing that, and I think that that's something that'd be really cool. That assumes that that's functional. I mean, it's not like every single person has children, Mm-hmm. So maybe it's everyone who has children basically is in this kind of rotation.
Maybe, or anybody who wants to
yeah,
figure out hey, do they actually want kids? Or hey, am I ready for a kid? Well, here's your test run.
Well, that would be interesting.
It'd be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to see how this would affect the community dynamic too, because it's if this did work and it worked for a while, obviously the kids would be close because they're being watched over as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And that means also the parents would also be a relatively close-knit community because the kids are close.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Constant.
Kids are malicious monsters sometimes. The thing is that
yeah.
The thing is that most children, they form their own groups. I mean, the society in general. You're gonna build a circle of people. You're like, oh, I'm cool with these people. Everyone else who's not in the circle, them. I mean, they may not use that language. They may not act in that specific manner, but that's the general gist. And I think it would be a little bit naive to think that, oh, hey, by the way, we're going to have this whole system that's kind of in place for taking care of children, but we're going to ignore the fact that there are children that other children hate.
Yeah, so it's just
Yeah,
So
host,
it's
I
just
agree.
like how so it'd be like how would the, community dynamic change and what would happen when you have those little ickies that are not being the nicest to the other ickies?
Certainly.
When you've got a couple of, little cracked ickies.
I mean, this goes into the whole figuring out and understanding the needs of the people. I mean, like, if you have a child acting out, and that child is, you know, basically none of the other children like that kid, right?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of different things you could consider doing in that situation, and I think that, like, this showcases a lack of, at least, like foresight for us to have this conversation, because it's necessarily not the direction that I was expecting to discuss.
Whoops.
But that's okay. Like, I mean, that's fine. I mean, these things are okay. But, like, I would say, like, I would need to do a little bit more research about child
Fair
dynamics in general before
Fair
I
enough.
really spoke about it. But what I can say is that, like, children will very likely, be very, I would say, rather like honest and direct about, like, things. Children don't know how to beat around the bush very much.
Subtlety, none.
Yeah, I don't really see that happening very often, especially in young children. And so, like, perhaps this is an opportunity to develop mental health platforms to be able to help out and assist children who might not be, exactly having the easiest of times. But yeah, I'd have to do more research on this. I mean, if this is something you guys want to know
Fair
more
enough.
about.
But I mean, it's a complicated topic, so.
Certainly. And like I had mentioned earlier in the episode, I intend on coming back to family and the topics surrounding family frequently in the coming months. I think family is something that is important. It is necessary to discuss because I would like to start delving more in depth into psychological subjects. And I know that's something that some people here want. And I want to do it in a way that's honest, not as opinion based as a lot of our previous content has been, but actually like looks at studies and compares statistics and certain values and provable, research and whatnot that supports our conclusions. And of course, our conclusions are opinions at the end of the day. This would be something that people can refute if they'd like. And that's okay if you guys want to. I mean, I'm totally okay with that. Because I think that whenever someone has a difference of opinion and they share it, everyone has an opportunity to learn. So, yeah. All right. Well, I mean, if there are no further questions, I mean, it looks like there was a few more things. Are you sure there's nothing else to say?
Just a couple of additional comments about, the daycare options and whatnot. But again, this is referring back to the, childcare and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, host made a comment of parents drop their kids at the daycare that they work at because they're a cheap option. These kids need more attention than we can give. So, like, support the kids and that sort of thing. And then, the test child and the kids are monsters.
yeah, which I totally agree with. Okay, all right, fair enough. Yeah, in that case, then, okay. If you guys have any more questions for the show or anything like that, or for me, feel free to email the show, awickedparley@gmail.com. We're happy to answer or, review any questions or thoughts you might have. And if you like this particular episode, please make sure to hit the like button. That's how people will see it. We can share these kind of things. Mm-hmm. And look forward to more discussions about this. I really honestly... I know how much our previous episodes have been steeped in opinion that have been unsubstantiated, and I want to shift away from unsubstantiated claims and opinions as much as possible and steep them and be backed by evidence. Well, many of the things I've said have sources and I think are backed in evidence. I think that they need to be shared with you guys. So that way misunderstandings and other things like that are less likely to appear. With that being said, next week will be the final episode before our 2.5 long, at least, hiatus.
Not weeks.
Sorry, weeks. 2.5 months. 2.5 months hiatus. When we return, there will be a new studio, a new format, a bunch of new things. We will
keep the Discord server updated.
Yes, Discord server will be updated. The Patreon.
We will attempt the YouTube community page too.
Yes, the Patreon will also still be there if you guys want to support us. Know that we're going to be continuing content there, but due to a lot of life things going on, the show has to be put on pause. It is my fault. Do not blame Rose. It is mine entirely. Yeah.
I mean, I've created hiatuses in the past.
Well, I mean, hey, it's fine. These things happen.
Life happens. This is a nice, calm little YouTube show.
Yeah, but I'm excited because when this format changes, theoretically
new stuff.
There should be more voices, and we will be able to talk about more stuff in depth, which I think.
So many logistics to cover.
Yes, which I think is going to be. It's exciting and terrifying all at the same time. So I hope that you'll be with us for those new and exciting changes, and we'll of course provide feedback. When those changes take into effect.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, thank you for watching this episode. It's been awesome. I loved the comments and the questions and the statements and engaging with you guys. It's been a minute, hasn't it? So
it's been a hot minute.
It has. So I want you guys to stay safe. Have yourself a great rest of your night, and we'll see you in the next one. Good night, everybody.